So we continue our little season evaluations of teams that have either missed or have clinched the playoffs with the Nashville Predators today, wearing one of the worst jerseys that has ever been made. Nashville itself had one of the worst seasons it's ever had. This year was brutal for Nashville. I'm shocked that the record is what it is because it seems like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with the Nashville Predators. They are the third team to be eliminated from playoff contention, and it's just been a brutal year. 27, 37, and 8 for 62 points. They are 30th in the NHL. They have a .431 points percentage. They have scored 184 goals for, have allowed 232 for a minus 48 differential. They are 18, 15, and 3 at home, and they are 9, 22, and 5 on the road. A lot of things to point out there. First off, their goal differential. With one of the better goaltenders in the NHL, having a minus 48 is just wild to me. And their away record as well. They only have 9 wins on the road in like 41 games on the road. That's insane. That is insane. And just the fact that this team had a pretty good year last year. I think a lot of what last year was, though, was the point streak. That 17, 18, 19 game point streak they were on that went an insane amount, I think really boosted them into the playoffs. I think if you don't have that, I don't really know if they make it, to be honest. Because I think, again, you look in terms of that time, like Arizona was competing with them around then. I think you also had St. Louis there. You had Minnesota there as well. And as well as that, too, a factor of that is that, Minnesota obviously, came in last year, really struggled. This year, they've came out of nowhere and have boosted themselves into the standings. That also plays a factor, too. But at the same time, like last year, I feel like, again, it was really boosted from that point streak, and I don't think the team would have made the playoffs, or maybe they would have, but I don't know if they would have made the playoffs outside of that point streak. And then they kind of get blinded by that a little bit. They go out, they make all the signings they did in free agency, which we'll get into in a second here. They spend like the most money out of anybody, and they end up being the third worst team in the league. It's insane. It is pretty wild to think. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that the Predators are in a really bad spot now. They're not in a bad spot. They're definitely in a strange spot, though, because they're a team in a sense that, like, on paper, their roster isn't that terrible. Like if their roster is all playing at the level that they can play or in their prime, that's a pretty damn good roster. But just the way that the team worked out, and again, I said it in the News of the Week video yesterday, in a sense that, like, it's weird that they had all these new guys come in and they didn't work out. They didn't mesh together right away. And then you have Washington, who had all those new guys come in, and they just completely meshed together so well in their first in the NHL. It's weird to think that's how it is, but it's kind of how it went this year, to be honest with you. We'll get into the scores here in a second. I do want to go through the signings again. They signed Marchessault to that contract. They signed Stamkos. They signed Brady Shea. I think, like, at the time they looked like good signings, but I don't really think any of them have worked out at the level that we thought they were going to. And it's just really disappointing overall how this year has made an impact on those players. And I wonder what the future is going to look like. Again, they're not in a bad spot because they have draft capital. They have like 3 first-round picks. I think that that's a major positive. I think that they have asset management that they can use there with those picks. And then as well as that, too, they also have picks in future drafts, too. So they have the capital where they can quickly just run into a rebuild and just build the team up. Which, if they wanted to trade Forsberg and O'Reilly and Yossi and Saros, you can make it happen. But it seems like Nashville is going to just take this year to reevaluate and then come back next year is the expectation. But anyways, we're talking about this like it's a 2025 review. We're not there just yet. Let's get into the scores. Philip Forsberg leading the way, 72 games played, 28 goals, 38 assists, 66 points. Forsberg has not been bad. I think he's been one of the positives for Nashville this year. And believe me, there have not been a lot of them this year especially. I think he's had a good year. Overall, I would see that he has been He's always been very valuable to Nashville. I mean, last year, like, I think a big part of why they even got into the playoffs was Forsberg and Hussein Saros as well as their goaltender. So Forsberg's got to get a lot of credit for how Nashville's been this year, and I think that, or for how Nashville has been in previous years. This year, though, definitely a little bit of a step back from him, but he's still a very talented and very good player for sure. And by the way, he does lead the team in every remark and every stat, so not a surprise. Jonathan Marchessault, second in scoring, again, one of their new acquisitions. 72 games played, 19 goals, 30 assists, 49 points. Not terrible, but still a disappointment. You look at the years he had in Vegas prior, it's still a disappointment from where he was. I really don't know. I think for Marchessault, he's definitely been a lot better than Stamkos. Stamkos has struggled a lot this season. I think Marchessault still is younger, where he can come back and have a bounce back season. This has just been a down year for him for sure. But overall, just it's a weird time in Nashville, and seeing how Marchessault and them have been. Again, Stamkos, 72 games played, 23 goals, 22 assists, 45 points. Stamkos would go through stretches where he would go like 10 or 11 games without scoring at all. And again, it's been a brutal year for him specifically. And it kind of makes Tampa look smart, because Tampa's third in that division. They look like a team that is a sneaky cup team. And they were criticized heavily for letting Stamkos go. And you could kind of tell, like, looking at it now, like, the 5v5 numbers were there, and it was pretty clear that he was starting to decline a little bit, and became abundantly clear, honestly, that was the direction that they were going to go in. It sucks that they couldn't keep him around. Obviously, you want to keep around your best player in franchise history, but you could tell the numbers were declining, and the writing was on the wall. And I give credit to Julian Breezewald for going down that road. And I mean, I don't blame Trotz for making that signing, but again, the writing was on the wall that he was starting to kind of regress a little bit, and it made sense why Tampa Bay moved on from him. Ryan O'Reilly, 69 games played, 16 goals, 27 assists, 43 points. Still can be a very serviceable second-line center. I still think he can be that. Again, there were talks of him potentially being traded this past trade deadline, but Trotz said that he wanted to just keep him on the team and not, move him unless it was a place he wanted to go, which is not great management, but we'll talk about that later. Still a little bit weird to me, but anyways, I like O'Reilly. I think he's a good player. I think he has some potential and is somebody who I think could get moved to the offseason if Nashville decides to go down the road of like full-blown rebuild. Now, Roman Josi is that next name, who had a really rough year. I think this might be the worst season of Josi's career. 53 games played, 9 goals, 29 assists for 38 points this season. A massive regression from previous years. You usually see Josi scoring at a pace of like 70, 80 points, maybe even more than that at points in his career. It's so weird. Like, he's going to be like a 40-point scorer. That's about it. It's just wild, like, how down of a year he's had with the Nashville Predators. So just a really rough year from Josi. I think that's also been a big factor in why he hasn't been, or why the Predators have kind of been struggling. I think that's also, I think he might have been playing injured as well. I don't know. We'll see. That's just my theory. Michael Bunting, 6th in scoring, 66 games played, 16 goals, 16 assists, 32 points. Asterisks on that. Not all of those points are with the Predators, but again, Bunting is relatively younger than some of these other players on this team. I will say this, though. He is like 27, 28. He's not that young. He's kind of in his prime, but again, it's just an interesting thing to follow, and we'll see where Bunting goes down the road. But yeah, Bunting was someone that I've been following, and was traded from Pittsburgh to Nashville for Luke Schenn, and obviously that went the way it did, but overall, Bunting, an interesting piece. Brady Shea, 72 games played, 10 goals, 17 assists, 27 points as well. That signing has not worked out. That might be one of the worst signings of last year's offseason. He has been brutal with Nashville. I remember that one play at the beginning of the season where he got absolutely walked. I think it was by Carolina. Brutal look for Nashville, and where we're going to see them moving forward is, I don't know. And then Luke Evangelista, 58 games played, 9 goals, 16 assists, 25 points with Nashville this year as well. Evangelista, I think kind of took a little bit of a step back, sophomore slump. I'm pretty sure he was a rookie last year. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest with you. I think we know where Evangelista can go, and I think we know his potential. I'm not worried about it. I think he's going to be able to bounce back next year and be solid. So, yeah, that's your leading scorers and that for Nashville. It's been a rough year offensively. Again, you do have to factor in Gustav Nyquist left the roster as well, so that obviously removes a guy from that. But overall, it's been a pretty big struggle. In net for Nashville is Hussein Saros, 18, 28, and 6, a 2.89 goals against average, and a .898 save percentage. It's been... I really don't know how to gauge it because, again, I'm not watching a ton of Nashville games. They're one of the 2 teams that we haven't streamed this year, ironically enough, in the watch with Nordics. It just hasn't come up. For Saros, I don't really know how to gauge it. I think a lot of it may just be the team is playing poorly. I still think he's had solid numbers this year. I mean, it's hard to gauge if it's definitely not his fault. But yeah, overall, just not a great season from him statistically. I think he's definitely been better than the numbers say, but still not ideal. And then Justice Annunen, 14, 11, and 1 for a 3.05 goals against and a .890 save percentage. Been the backup, I guess. I don't really know what else to add to that. But overall, like when you look at the overall numbers, everything is bad in Nashville, and it's been an absolutely abysmal season. I do wonder, though, and I've been thinking about this a lot, like, what if next year Nashville figures it out, they get adjusted, and they come back and they're just super good next year? I wonder if that could happen, but I'm not holding my breath. I do think they're in a better spot than a lot of people give them credit to be. I think there's some people who look at them and like, oh, they're cooked. They're in such a horrible spot. They're screwed for the future. I don't necessarily think that. I do think, I think we're about to head into some dark ages in Nashville, but they're not in a bad spot. Like, they could easily go and kickstart a rebuild, trade Forsberg, trade Yossi, trade your core, and then go down the road of, building up in the drafts and that. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. They are in an interesting spot, as the title is of this video, heading into this offseason. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video down below, and please do consider subscribing to join the community that we are building here on this channel. Again, when we see more teams get eliminated and more teams clinch, we will have more videos flowing out as well. That's it for me. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you guys in the next video.